The Millionaire and the Black Beggar, a story of unexpected fortune. They called her the Black Beggar on the subway train, Isabel Nunez, a 24-year-old juggling life by a thread, hustling through New York's relentless chaos. 3 jobs, barely enough hours of sleep, and a technical degree dangling like a distant dream. Her clothes were worn, her skin pale as paper, but her eyes burned with a fierce kind of hope that resisted the city's crushing weight. On a grim morning, the subway was a swarm of restless bodies, cold breath clouding the air, and Isabel clinging to the handrail like it was a lifeline. Then, amidst the noise and the jostle, something shimmered on the grimy floor. An expensive smartphone, gleaming black and silver, untouched but out of place. Not an ordinary lost wallet or crumpled note. This was a gold mine in her tired hands. Her chest tightened. The usual rush whispered, "Keep it. You need it." But then that stubborn heart pushed back. She scanned the crow. What if this was more than just a phone? What if returning it spun a thread linking 2 wildly different worlds? She made the call, her fingers trembling. Lucas answered, calm but sharp. "I'm on the next train," he said. Then the city noise swallowed the line. When Lucas emerged, he wasn't just a businessman. He carried an air of untouchable power that pressed down on Isabel like a heavy fog. The other passengers whispered, shooting sideways glances, as if this meeting was some scandal brewing under fluorescent lights. She handed over the phone. His smile was brief, almost cool, but his eyes cracked open, curious, maybe even grateful. Just then, a sharp wave hit Isabel, a dizzy spell twisting her stomach, sweat chilling her forehead. She gasped, and before anyone could blink, she collapsed. Chaos exploded. Crowds shouted, some shaking their heads in judgment, others frozen in terror. Lucas caught her, steadying her frail frame. The warmth of his jacket against her skin was strange, almost alien. He took her to his townhouse. Luxury swarmed every corner, a stark contrast to her cramped apartment and sleepless nights. Isabel barely had time to register the velvet cushions or the polished floors before the anemia clawed again, her vision blurring. Lucas hovered, torn between distance and care. His world, fortunes, social circles. Sharp suits clashed violently with the world Isabel fought to survive daily, but beneath the glimmering surface, something fragile and real was stirring. They talked. Tentative, awkward, but electric. Isabel dared to reveal parts of herself usually hidden. The sheer exhaustion, the relentless worry, dreams of a veterinary clinic, a sanctuary born from her deepest hopes. Lucas listened, shadows darkening his handsome face. Then came the call, an old secret slamming through the quiet room like a wrecking ball. Lucas's past, tangled. Lucas stared out the window, trapped between family legacies and a growing feeling he couldn't yet name. Would he bury his past, or would it rise to consume them both? Could Isabel stand tall in the storm, or would her fears break her first? They were both caught, 2 worlds crashing like thunder on a fragile night. What comes next? Only time will tell. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes all the differ. Isabel's heart raced like a hummingbird's wings as she stared at Lucas, the air between them heavy with silence. He turned to her, eyes distant, lost in thoughts swirling like the Manhattan skyline in a storm. That almost palpable tension shattered when suddenly Lucas's phone buzzed violently on the marble table, slicing through their fragile moment. He glanced at the screen. The color drained from his face. He stammered, his usually composed demeanor cracking. It's my mother. Before she could ask what was wrong, he answered, voice tight. Hello? The smile slid from his lips like a choked breath. He listened, lips moving but no words escaping. Isabel felt her heart tighten, the lump rising again. Then, out of nowhere, he shouted, What do you mean? His voice trembled, haunted, and Isabel's instincts kicked in. Something was terribly wrong. In seconds, he hung up, his fingers trembling. It's happened, he whispered, staring into the void. My father, he's been. His breath hitched, rough and jagged, the words clawing at his throat. He's in jail, for fraud, for everything. What? Isabel's thoughts spiraled. She could only watch as Lucas's world imploded right before her eyes. It was like watching a precious glass sculpture crack, piece by piece, until it shattered. Lucas, she whispered, her voice breaking as she reached for him. But he recoiled, fear and anger swirling in his gaze. You don't understand. This isn't just about money. It's about our family, our name. I have to go. He dashed for the door, but a jolt within her pulled him back. Wait, what do you mean? The words spilled out before she could catch them. You're leaving me? After everything? The panic hit her hard, slicing through her chest like a knife. Isabel, He stopped, breath heaving, anguish churning in his deep-set eyes. I can't let this drown me. My whole life is on the line. Pain flared in her heart. She was used to struggling, to fighting tooth and nail for a way out. He had never seen her world, or the depths of her humiliation. This isn't just your battle. You said you wanted a clinic. The dream they shared hung in the air, a lifeline she was desperate to cling to. The door burst open, and in stepped a police officer, badge gleaming coldly. Lucas Anderson? The authority in his voice slammed into the room. Isabel's breath caught. What's happening? She whispered, confusion racing through her veins. Panic echoed through the room like a broken record, the sound bouncing off shiny walls that felt suddenly suffocating. Mr. Anderson, the officer continued, we need to ask you a few questions regarding your father's case. You're not implicated yet, but things may change. Lucas stiffened, jaw tightening. Questions for what? Fraud, business dealings, possible money laundering. The officer's words hit like a punch, each one driving the reality deeper. Money, the very thing that put them on different paths, now drew them into the same storm. Isabel's world spun. She took a step back, her heart racing in ways it never had, fear mingling with disbelief. Could it really be true? She stared at Lucas, his face twisted in turmoil, suddenly seeing not just a wealthy man, but a boy trapped by shadows of his past. No, she breathed, stunned by the implications. You knew. He looked away, guilt flooding his features, the first crack in his polished facade. Then the officer gestured towards Lucas with a heavy tone. Sir, we need your statement. Every atom in Isabel's body screamed as the wall between them shattered. The connection forged moments ago turned to splinters, each word echoing in the cold air. And just like that, everything they built began to crumble, revealing foundations built on secrets darker than she had ever imagined. In the silent chaos that followed, their fates hung delicately on an edge. And no one knew how far they would fall. The room stood frozen. What would happen next? Would Isabel's dreams drown in Lucas's tide of betrayal? Or could something new, something unforeseen, rise from the wreckage? The room stood frozen, tense as the air before a storm. Isabel's heart hammered in her chest, the fear wrapping around her like a vice. Lucas leaned against the wall, his face paler than before, the weight of reality crushing down. The police officer's presence loomed as a stark reminder of the chaos swirling. The door flung open again, this time with more force. A woman burst in, her hair tangled, eyes wild. It was Lucas's sister, Mia. "Lucas, you have to listen to me," she gasped, breathless and frantic. The urgency in her voice pierced the tension in the room like a knife. Lucas's eyes widened, caught between dread and confusion. "Mia, what are you doing here?" But she didn't answer him. Instead, she turned to the officer, voice shaking. "You need to know it's not what you think. My father, he's not innocent." Isabel felt the world tilt beneath her. The truth hung like a dark cloud, and the silence that followed felt unbearable. "What do you mean?" she whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. The officer's expression twisted with skepticism. "Miss Anderson, this isn't the time for games." "No, it's serious," Mia pressed. "My father was involved in something bigger. Money laundering, yes, but it's linked to a criminal organization, not just business gone wrong. Lucas, we have to get out of here." Her words hit like a thunderclap. Isabel glanced at Lucas, his face drained of color, a shockwave of betrayal washing over him. "What? You can't be serious." Mia stepped closer, desperation flaring in her eyes. "I'm serious. He was laundering money for them. I've been following leads. I found documents hidden in his office." "Documents? What are you talking about?" Lucas shot back, voice rising with disbelief. "Daddy's in jail because he couldn't pay them back. They'll come for us. For you." Mia's voice broke, tears brimming. "They'll come for you, and we'll both be dragged in." The officer straightened, suddenly alert. "If you have evidence—" A loud crash interrupted, the sound echoing from the back of the house. Everyone froze. Someone was trying to break in. "Get back!" the officer yelled, instinct kicking in. He drew his weapon, eyes darting toward the sound. Isabel's breathing turned rapid, her heart racing dangerously fast. "Lucas!" she shouted, panic slicing through her. "We need to get out. They'll come for us." "Mia, follow me," Lucas commanded, clenching his fists. "We can't let them take us." But before they could react, the door burst open again, and in came three figures cloaked in darkness, their faces obscured. Panic rippled through the air, thick and suffocating. "Get down!" the officer shouted, voice hoarse with urgency. Isabel's body froze as she dropped to the ground, heart thundering like cannon fire. She felt the tension around her fracture. Shouts erupted. The chaos drowned her senses. One of the figures raised an arm, a glinting object catching Isabel's eye. Time seemed to slow as a sharp crack echoed through the room, followed by a horror that slammed into her chest. She clutched her stomach, gasping for breath. This wasn't just a confrontation anymore. This was a war exploding around them. In that moment, as the dust of secrets and betrayal settled thick and heavy, one truth screamed clearer than the chaos. Nothing was as it seemed. Lucas's past, his family, even the phone that brought them together, all of it fought a deeper battle, a shadow that loomed, threatening to swallow them whole. Isabel's mind raced, shrouded in confusion and fear. Would they survive? What was the real depth of Lucas's ties? The walls closed in. Their intertwined fates now danced on the edge of a knife. In the frantic chaos, one question remained. Who were the real monsters in this story? The room stood frozen, tense as the air before a storm. Isabel's heart hammered in her chest, panic wrapping around her like a vice. Lucas leaned against the wall, his face pale with fear, as the police officer's presence loomed like a dark cloud. Then it all shattered in an instant. The door swung open with a crash, and a figure rushed in. It was Lucas's sister, Mia, wild-eyed and frantic. "Lucas, you have to listen to me," she gasped, her voice shaking with urgency. Lucas looked bewildered, caught halfway between dread and confusion. "Mia, what are you doing here?" Ignoring him, she turned to the officer, desperation igniting her eyes. "You need to know. It's not what you think. Dad isn't innocent." Isabel's pulse quickened. What was happening? The truth hung heavy in the air, a dark cloud looming, wrapping around them like fog. "What do you mean?" she whispered, her stomach tightening with dread. The officer straightened, skepticism shadowing his expression. "Miss Anderson, this isn't the time for games. I'm serious. He was involved in something bigger," Mia exclaimed, stepping closer, voice barely above a whisper. "Money laundering? Yes, but it's connected to a criminal organization." The room throbbed with tension. "You have to be kidding," Lucas muttered, jaw tightening. "No," Mia shook her head, eyes bright with fear. "I've been gathering evidence. Documents hidden in his office. They'll come for us, for both of you." The officer shifted, sensing the gravity of her words. "If there's evidence..." Then came a loud crash from the back of the house. Everyone froze. "Get down," the officer shouted, drawing his weapon, eyes darting toward the sound. Isabel's breath caught, fear spreading like ice through her veins. Lucas's body tensed. What was that? Another loud crash, this time from the window. Glass shattered, sprinkling shards across the floor. Someone broke in. Suddenly, darkness spilled into the room. 3 figures stepped inside, faces hidden behind masks, weapons in hand. Panic erupted. Isabel's heart raced. "Get back!" the officer shouted, but it was too late. Time slowed. One of the masked assailants lunged forward, pointing a weapon straight at Lucas. "Get down!" Isabel screamed, instinct kicking in. She dropped to the floor, desperate to shield herself. Chaos swirled around her. Then, in a heartbeat, all hell broke loose. The officer fired. Shots echoed, ringing in her ears. Lucas stumbled back, eyes wide with shock. The air thickened with the scent of gunpowder and fear. "Lucas!" Isabel cried, but it was too late. He collapsed against the wall, a sudden gasp escaping his lips. Blood streamed from his shoulder, pooling onto the polished floor, staining it red, deep and unnatural. "No!" Mia screamed, rushing to his side, frantic. "Lucas, Stay with me. Terror clawed at Isabel's insides. This can't be happening. It shouldn't be real. She shifted to crawl toward him, hands trembling, cold sweat slicking her skin. As Mia pressed her hands to Lucas's wound, the officer shouted commands, trying to regain control amidst the chaos. But Isabel couldn't tear her gaze away from the blood pooling around Lucas. "Help!" she choked out, but the room reverberated with chaos, drowning her voice. Mia's face twisted in anguish, the horror of what was unfolding crashing over her. "Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you warn us?" She screamed, her voice raw with panic. Isabel's heart sank. What had they uncovered? Was it just a family secret or something much darker? And then, just as quickly, everything shifted again. The masked figures turned, their voices low but urgent. "We need them alive. There's still time." Her breath caught in her throat. What did they mean? Lucas was hurt? He needed help? But then, amidst the confusion, a third masked figure stepped forward, arms crossed, voice low and chilling. "You don't understand. It was always going to come to this. Lucas, you're the only one who can fix it. You have the key." Lucas's eyes fluttered, panic and confusion mixing. What key? What did they know? The tension exploded again as more footsteps echoed outside. Panic surged. They were trapped. Isabel felt a new fear layer on top of the existing chaos. She had to find a way out. But as she scrambled for answers, eyes flitting between Lucas and the masked figures, a single thought crashed through the noise. Everything she thought she knew was about to unravel. In an instant, relationships teetered, allegiances shifted, and the very foundation of their lives stood on the brink of collapse. What had they stumbled into? What lay hidden beneath the surface of this family and its dark dealings? As fear gripped her heart, a single question echoed within. Would they survive the truth? Would they ever escape the shadows consuming them whole? The room stood frozen, tension crackling in the air. Isabel felt the weight of fear pressing down on her. Lucas leaned against the wall, his skin pale, as if the life was draining from him. And then, chaos erupted. "Get down!" The officer shouted, his voice cracking like a whip. The masked figures were closing in, weapons drawn, shadows stretching across the gleaming floor. Isabel dropped, heart hammering in her chest, her breath quickening, her eyes darting. Mia quickly moved closer to Lucas, her hands shaking as she pressed against the blood pooling from his shoulder. "Stay with me," she cried, panic twisting her voice. Every second felt like an eternity, the world spinning out of control. But then, just as the air was about to explode into chaos, a piercing scream shattered the moment. "Lucas, no!" A voice echoed from the doorway, cutting through all their tension like a knife. Isabel's heart skipped, and she glanced up to see Lucas's mother standing there, eyes wide, face stricken with fear. "What are you doing here?" Lucas stammered, confusion mixed with disbelief. "I came as soon as I heard," she gasped, breathless, eyes darting between the crazed figures and her son. "You need to get out. They'll kill you." The officer's face shifted to a mask of confusion. "Who are you?" he barked. But the room was alive with a new kind of energy, tinged with desperation. "You don't understand," Lucas's mother pleaded, pointing a shaking finger at the masked figures. They're not here just for him. They're here for our family. And for you. She turned to Isabel, locking eyes with her. You have to listen. This isn't what it seems. Isabel felt her stomach drop. It was one thing to be caught in the middle of family drama, but to be tangled in a web of deception was something else entirely. What do you mean? She managed to whisper. Mia pulled Lucas closer, her face a mask of dread. Mom, what are you saying? But Lucas's mother wouldn't back down. Your father owes them more than money. He betrayed them. And he made a deal. The clinic was just a cover, a facade. The money, it's tied to these criminal activities. Her words dropped like a stone, vibrating through the room. Isabel's heart raced as she realized the depth of the reality crashing down around them. No, it can't be, she muttered, but the truth felt heavy, suffocating. Immediately, the tension cracked like glass. The masked figures exchanged glances, confusion flickering across their features. Is this true? You're lying! One spat, losing grip of their cool facade. No, it's a misunderstanding. You're wrong, Lucas cried, panic spilling over. But as he spoke, the air shifted again. Suddenly, another masked figure pushed past the first, this one taller, commanding attention. The newcomer threw back their hood, revealing a stunningly piercing gaze. You owe me your loyalty, Lucas. And if you want to stay alive, you'll have to make a choice, they said, voice low and calm. Isabel's breath caught. She felt the pulse of dread knotting in her stomach as realization dawned. You know him? She asked, voice shaking. Lucas looked at the figure with recognition mingled with horror. You're my cousin? He stammered, disbelief lacing his words. But that's impossible, Mia shouted, shock written all over her face. What does it matter? You're in danger, all of you. The cousin waved dismissively, urgency lining his words. Your father made promises that need honoring, and he's left you to deal with the consequences. The family name is at stake. The blow landed hard, shaking Isabel to her core. Family betrayal ran deeper than anything she had imagined. Ties of blood were twisted and corrupted beyond recognition. Chaos reigned as voices clashed, but as panic escalated, one thing crystallized in Isabel's mind. Everything she thought she understood was collapsing into shadows. Lucas, trapped between family loyalties and a past he didn't know, might never escape the darkness closing in. And then, like a body falling into an abyss, she realized the truth. Lucas's world wasn't just crumbling. It was built on lies, far darker than she had ever expected. What were they truly facing? As dread consumed the room, one question echoed, unsettling and chilling. Who could she really trust? The room pulsed with. Lucas stood, torn between his past and the uncertainty of the moment. You're lying! This can't be true! His voice was a mixture of anger and fear, desperation bubbling beneath the surface. But then, silence enveloped them, heavy and oppressive. The masked figures exchanged uncertain glances, their confidence wavering. Mia's voice trembled as she continued. No, it is true. Dad, he was involved in something dangerous. He needed money, and he got in too deep. Just then, the air shifted like the ground before an earthquake. From the back of the room, another sound echoed. A low rumble quickly rose in volume, building until it was deafening. Isabel's heart raced as the walls vibrated. "What is happening?" she whispered, anxiety crawling up her spine. Suddenly the floor groaned, splitting open right beneath Lucas. An unseen force erupted from the depths, causing him to stumble, his eyes wide with horror. "No!" he shouted, trying to regain his balance as the floor buckled. Isabel barely had time to react as she saw it, a tremor cracking the space wide open. Debris flew around her. Dust filled the air, blinding her. She fell to her knees, feeling the weight of the world shift beneath her. Then out of the chasm appeared a figure, shrouded in darkness but slowly rising from the depths, silhouetted against the chaos. As the dust settled, a chilling realization washed over everyone. It was more than just a shadow. It was a person. The masked figures turned to it, eyes wide with recognition and fear. "You!" one yelled, voice trembling. "You shouldn't be here!" Lucas's mother gasped. "How is this possible? I thought you were gone." Her voice trembled with disbelief, shock blanketing the room. "No!" Lucas screamed, but it was too late. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a face that struck Isabel like a bolt of lightning. It was a woman, strikingly familiar. Her hair fell like spilled ink, and her eyes burned with an uncanny spark. "Surprise, Lucas," she said, her tone mocking. "Did you really think you could bury the past? I told you this day would come. You're just like your father, running from your own name." The room fell silent. Isabel's breath hitched. "What? Who is she?" she stammered, feeling the weight of urgency. "This is your mother," Mia whispered in disbelief. "But she died." The woman's laugh echoed off the walls, cold and unfeeling. "Oh, are we still telling that story? How quaint." She stepped closer, her presence a mixture of allure and dread. "Your precious father needed me. It was never just his game." Isabel looked at Lucas, who was frozen in shock. His mother staggered back, grappling with the impossible truth. "You betrayed us," she shouted, anger mingled with pain. The tension exploded in a heartbeat. Emotions crashed like waves. Lucas's anger transformed into something desperate, primal. "Why are you here? You've haunted us long enough." But the woman smirked, unfazed. "I'm here to collect what's owed. The family legacy doesn't die, it adapts." She pointed at Lucas, her smile widening menacingly. "And you? You're finally needed." The fear crashed into Isabel like a tsunami. All this time, she thought she'd understood Lucas and his struggles, only to face this twisted reality. The air thickened with betrayal, a new layer of darkness settling in. As the chaos erupted again, the masked figures began to retreat, eyes darting nervously. "We can't be here," one shouted, backing away. The woman's gaze turned sharp, icy, commanding. "Stay," she ordered, her tone icy as the floor now splintered around them. "We'll end this now." Isabel's heart raced. Lucas's past wasn't just a moment. It was a perilous storm, and the woman was the eye, the source of chaos. What had she walked into? Time hung heavy, and they all stood at the edge of a new abyss. Would the truth bind them together or tear them apart? The room pulsed with tension as everyone processed Mia's shocking revelation. Lucas stood frozen, his eyes wide, a tempest of emotions crashing inside him. "You're lying. This can't be true." His voice trembled, caught between rage and fear. Silence blanketed the air for a moment, thick enough to choke on. The masked figures exchanged glances, their bravado wavering. Mia pressed on. Dad was involved in something dangerous. He needed money and got too deep. And just as the atmosphere felt ready to explode again, a low rumble echoed through the floor. It grew louder, like an approaching storm, rattling the very walls. Isabel's heart sank, dread pooling in her stomach. "What's happening?" she whispered, her voice barely cutting through the growing noise. Suddenly, without warning, the floor cracked open beneath Lucas. He stumbled back, eyes painted with terror, as if the ground itself were alive. "No!" he yelled, trying to regain his footing while the room quaked with anxiety. Then, out of the widening cracks surged a figure, cloaked in darkness, a silhouette rising ominously. As the dust settled, everyone gasped. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a woman with strikingly familiar features, hair cascading like dark waves, eyes sharp with intent. "Surprise, Lucas," she said, her voice smooth, tinged with mockery. "Did you really think your past was buried forever? You're just like your father. Now it's time to face the music." Isabel felt a jolt of recognition. This was Lucas's mother? The woman who supposedly died? The air grew heavy with disbelief, vibrations of chaos swirling around them. "Are you kidding?" Lucas's mother sneered, stepping closer, each word biting. "You thought you could escape the truth? Your father's involvement? It wasn't just money. It was betrayal." "What do you mean?" Mia's voice cracked, confusion washing over her. But before anyone could respond, shots rang out, loud and sharp. The masked figures spun, suddenly alert. Someone had opened fire from outside. "Get down!" The police officer barked, crouching low, scrambling for cover. But when everyone ducked, panic consumed the scene. Isabel turned just in time to see one of the masked figures push past the others, panic flooding their demeanor. "We need to go. Now." Suddenly, an explosion rocked the building, sending debris flying. Glass shattered like fireworks, and Isabel felt the pull of danger, fear gripping her guts. Then everything shifted. In the chaos, Lucas's mother lunged toward her son, grabbing him fiercely. "Lucas, they've come for you. They want the key." "What key?" he screamed, twisting in her grip. "This," she shouted, pulling a small metallic object from her pocket, glinting ominously in the dim light. It looked like a key, but older, tarnished. A family heirloom? In that moment, the world tilted again. The connection between Lucas's family and a criminal organization was clearer than ever. The implications were enormous. What exactly did this key unlock? "What's happening?" Mia cried, desperation etched on her face. Then, before they could comprehend the full weight of the moment, the masked figures surged into the room. "Leave the key!" one yelled, eyes wild. "Your time is up." The room erupted into chaos. Lucas, cutting through the madness, reached for his mother who had frozen. Fear etched fiercely on her face. "What's the truth?" he begged, grappling for answers. But just then, the lights flickered and faded out entirely. They were plunged into darkness, the chaos surrounding them no longer visible, but palpable. A mass of confusion and fear stacking higher and higher. And in that suffocating darkness, a single voice pierced through, calm yet menacing. "You're all tangled in a game far beyond you. The choice now is yours." Isabel held her breath, a cold wave washing over her as she wrestled with the reality of their situation. The shadows stretched, teasing at the edges of their understanding. How deep did this rabbit hole go? What lay beyond the dim light of their truths? Every instinct screamed doubt, yet beneath the terror, a spark of hope flickered. What would they choose in the face of ruin? Would they piece the truth together, or would the darkness consume them all? The darkness swallowed them, pressing in with an unsettling weight. Isabel held her breath, feeling fear ripple through the room like a live wire. Lucas's mother stood frozen, clutching the tarnished key as if it could. The masked figures hesitated, their bravado cracking under the weight of unknown darkness. Then a piercing scream sliced through the chaos. It was a sound so raw and desperate that it shattered the oppressive silence. "Lucas!" a voice cried, the tone haunting and familiar. Isabel turned, eyes wide. From the shadows at the entrance, another figure emerged. "What are you doing here?" It was Lucas's father, face pale, eyes wild with fear as he stumbled inside, breathless and frantic. "Dad?" Lucas's voice trembled, caught completely off guard. "Get away from her!" he shouted, pointing an accusing finger at Lucas's mother, shocked and unyielding. "You shouldn't have come back. You'll ruin us all." The air thickened. The masked figures exchanged nervous glances, unsure of their next move. It was like watching a balloon swell too large, teetering on the edge of bursting. "Ruining us?" Lucas bit back, anger igniting. "You're the one who's been hiding. What would you know about ruin?" But it didn't stop there. Lucas's father lunged forward, eyes blazing. "You need to listen to me, son. This was never just about your mother. It's about survival. We made choices. Rotten choices." He paused, glancing around the dim room, his voice lowering. "Choices that involve you now, Lucas. You've become a pawn in a game you didn't even know you were playing." "Game?" Lucas's voice shook, disbelief pulling at his features. "What do you mean?" "Enough," the cousin snapped, regaining control. "Get the key and come with us. We don't have time for this." But then the lights flickered back on. Isabel's heart jumped, and her eyes widened. She gasped, taking in a new sight. From behind Lucas's father, shadows shifted. A third figure stepped out, face masked but framed strangely familiar. The masked figure took off the hood. A woman with striking green eyes stared back. "Lucas, it's me," she said, breathless. "I have to tell you everything." The room erupted. "No!" Lucas shouted. "This isn't happening!" Mia's confusion morphed into a tight knot of fear. "What is going on?" she pleaded, desperation slicing through her words. "Lucas, I'm your sister," the woman continued, stepping forward. "I thought I lost you. All of you." Stunned silence fell again, heavy and on the verge of disaster. Blood rushed in Isabel's ears, the reality twisting like knotted threads. Lucas's sister? So many secrets tangled up in this distorted family tree. Before anyone could process the magnitude, a loud bang struck the door. It burst open, and men stormed in, their faces hidden, weapons drawn, a force of shadows crashing against the despair in the room. "Get down!" the officer yelled, scrambling to shield Lucas and Mia, but it felt like they were trapped in an avalanche, caught between conflicting truths and family bonds fraying at the seams. "Leave the key," shouted one assailant, eyes piercing through the chaos. Everything felt surreal. Secrets, betrayals, and blood ties, all crashing together in an overwhelming surge. Isabel's heart raced in total disarray. Was this truly about a key? Or was it so much deeper? A cruel smile of Lucas's mother flashed in her mind. They stood at the edge of a plunge, holding together their fragile reality by a thread. But in that moment, she saw a glimmer of something, a flicker of hope, twisted with fear. Was this family meant to fall apart, or was there still time? In the fray, one question echoed louder than the chaos. Would they be able to piece together the truth? Or would they be swept away by the very shadows they struggled to escape? The room trembled, caught between shock and chaos. Hans, Lucas's father, stood there, fury and desperation fighting in his eyes. The masked figures tightened their grip on their weapons, their confidence evaporating in the thick air. With every second, the atmosphere buzzed, alive with uncertainty. "Lucas, listen to me," Hans shouted, urgency bubbling over. "You need to—" But before he could finish, the door splintered as another figure burst through. A man with sharp features and a calm demeanor. A dark Orus's. He commanded, voice cold as ice. Everyone froze. The masked figures looked at him, fear washing over their faces. "You shouldn't be here, David," one of them hissed, stepping back, eyes wide. Lucas's breath hitched. "David? Who are you? What do you have to do with any of this?" David grinned, revealing white teeth that glinted menacingly. "I'm here to clear things up. All those secrets, Lucas, they don't stay buried." Isabel's heart raced. What secrets? She looked from David to Lucas. The tension was so thick, it felt suffocating. "Secrets?" Lucas's voice was taut, confusion mingling with anger. "What do you mean?" "Like who you really are, Lucas," David continued, voice smooth but laced with malice. "You think you are just some naive pawn? You're far more important than you realize." "Important how?" Mia cried out, anger filling her eyes. "What are you talking about?" David stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "Your family," he said, a cruel twist in his lips. "They're not just criminals. They're a dynasty, and you, Lucas, are their heir." The words landed like a bombshell. Lucas staggered back, eyes wide, grasping for clarity. "No, that can't be true. My family? They've been in the game for years, running operations behind the scenes." David smirked, relishing the revelation. "Your father's betrayal? It's nothing new. You've always been a part of this hidden world, whether you knew it or not." Every soul in the room held their breath. Isabel's skin prickled with dread. Would he really have the blood of a dynasty on his hands? "Lies! You're lying!" Lucas shouted, anger igniting. "I'm not part of this." "That's where you're wrong," David replied, voice cutting through like glass. "They chose you. They've been planning this for years. You're destined to take a throne you didn't even know existed." The masked figures exchanged glances, their fear now replaced by ugly determination. "Get him," one yelled. But in a blur, David shifted, reaching into his coat. He pulled out a sleek device, pressing a button that sent a warning siren slicing through the air. Lights flashed red, illuminating terror etched on everyone's faces. "What did you just do?" Hans shouted, fear turning to panic as alarms blared. "I've saved you all a lot of trouble," David said, eyes gleaming. "The police are on their way. Let's see who gets out alive when the truth spills." Isabel felt like the ground was shifting beneath her. Everything she thought she knew was slipping away. The ties binding Lucas to this dark web of deceit wrapped tighter, constricting them all. Would they be crushed in this web of lies? Then, just as chaos loomed, Lucas's mother, who had been silent, stepped forward. "No, it can't end like this," she whispered, face pale. "Not with him." "What do you know?" Lucas demanded. Anger pooling in his eyes, shock morphing into betrayal. Then the room tilted. Everything changed in that moment. The key in her hand glowed, revealing itself as more than a key. The tarnish vanished, transforming into a symbol of power. "Your father, he's not just a criminal," she finally said, shaking slightly. "He's tied to a legacy, a bloodline we've hidden, and it connects to David." Time froze. Isabel's breath caught. The fire of angry relationships ignited, pulling tight, wrapping them all together in a struggle for truth. The air throbbed with intensity. The harsh, "We never had a choice, Lucas. The blood runs thick and deep. They needed you, and now they will come for what belongs to them." The masked figures tightened their grip, their fear morphing into desperation. Lucas's mother gasped, clutching the key. "We can't let them take you, Lucas. We can find a way out." The panic etched in her voice struck deeply, a mother's raw love cutting through the haze. Just then, the walls shook again, rattling loose debris. "Time's running out." David shouted, urgency flooding his tone. "Make your choice now, before it's too late." Mia grabbed Lucas's arm, her eyes wide with fear. "We can't trust him. He's manipulating you, Lucas." Her voice cracked under the weight of family tension turned to chaos. The door burst open, police flooding in, uniforms bold against the dim light. "Hands up, everyone!" a commanding voice echoed, thrusting the room into further disarray, weapons pointed everywhere. A standoff ignited. Isabel found herself clutching the edges of her seat, heart pounding like a drum. What was happening? "We need to move," she shouted, adrenaline surging. Lucas's father stepped in front of him, defiance mingling with fear. "He doesn't know the depths of this family, officer." He turned back to Lucas. "Don't listen to them. You're not a pawn. Fight with me." Murmurs of disbelief spiraled among the officers, glancing nervously at the masked figures. The tension was electric. Everyone on edge, every moment a heartbeat away from explosion. "Enough!" Lucas finally roared, the sound reverberating off the walls. "I'm done running. I have to stand for something." His gaze flicked from face to face, determination igniting a spark within him. But just before he could make a decision, a chilling howl echoed from outside, shaking the foundation. "They're here," David hissed, glancing toward the noise, his bravado fading quickly. The room trembled with tension. "What do we do?" Mia cried, glancing around wildly. "Run!" Isabel shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We need to get out before those shadows catch us." And with that, they all launched into action. Lucas's mother grabbed the key, shoving it into Lucas's hand. "Take this. You'll understand one day." They broke into a frenzied sprint, dodging obstacles as they charged for the door. The air thick with fear, they burst outside just as a flood of dark figures poured into the building. Breathless and filled with adrenaline, they tumbled into the street. Sirens blared around them like a storm of chaos. They were outside now, the world bright and jarring compared to the darkness behind them. Feet pounding against the pavement, they dashed toward a nearby alley, hearts racing together in an urgent rhythm. "This way," Isabel urged, fear pushing them forward, the weight of uncertainty palpable. As they reached the alley's end, they paused, catching their breath. The shadows of the past seemed to film together, but for now, they were free. Lucas turned to his mother. "What does this mean for us?" She looked deep into his eyes, tears brimming with hope. You'll have to fight for your truth, Lucas. The key unlocks things you might not be ready for, but you must. You'll decide how this legacy unfolds. And with those words hanging heavily in the air, they shared one last glance, uncertainty looming over their futures. They'd escape for now, but a storm brewed closer than ever. Lucas looked at Isabel, her determination matching his. "We'll face it together," he vowed, hands trembling, but filled with newfound resolve. "We'll uncover the truth, whatever it takes." As they stepped further into the light of the alley, uncertainty danced in their shadows. Their lives intertwined, yet so many questions remained unanswered. What lay ahead? Would they truly unlock the secrets that haunted them? The echoes of conflict faded into new beginnings, but the mystery stored within the key remained burdened with weight. So now, dear friends, hold on to your seats. This is your moment to join us further into this unfolding story.